We all go through it, right? But have you ever stopped to ask what school is really for? We're told it's this great ladder to success, but what if it's actually designed to keep us in our place? Well, that's exactly the debate we're diving into today.
You know, it's funny, we think of schools as having been around forever, but mass education is actually a pretty new thing. Before the Industrial Revolution, for most people, formal schooling just wasn't necessary. But then, boom, factories pop up everywhere, and suddenly they needed a whole new kind of worker, someone who could read, who was punctual, and who, most importantly, knew how to follow instructions. They needed a system to produce these workers on a massive scale, and that's how the modern school was born.
And right away this sparked this huge debate that is still raging today. When you boil it all down, there are two powerful and totally opposite answers. Is school a genuine path to opportunity for everyone, or is it really a system of control? Okay, first up, let's look at the optimistic view. This is known as the functionalist perspective, and it basically imagines society as this huge, complex machine. You've got the economy, the family, the government. Every part has a specific job to do to keep the whole thing running. And in this view, education has one of the most important jobs of all. So for functionalists, school is a vital cog in that social machine. I mean, its main purpose, sure, is to churn out skilled workers for the economy, but it's also doing something a little more subtle. It's teaching all of us a shared set of values, and, crucially, it's sorting us into the roles we're supposedly best suited for. And all of this leads to something they call social solidarity. The idea is pretty simple, really. If we all learn the same basic values and history in school, we're more likely to feel like we're part of one big team. And this harmony makes us accept our place in society, which keeps that big social machine running nice and smoothly. So how exactly does the system do all this sorting? Well, functionalists argue it's through a process they call role allocation, where school basically acts like a giant sieve. And you know, there's a perfect real-world example of this in action. The UK's school system after 1944. Get this, at just 11 years old, every single child in the country took one test. And based on that one result, you were sent to one of 3 different types of school, each one designed to train you for a specific kind of job, from future doctors and lawyers to skilled factory workers.
Okay, but there's a completely different way of looking at all this, a much more cynical theory that asks a tough question. What if society isn't a well-oiled machine at all? What if it's a rigged game designed from the start to keep the powerful on top?
And that brings us to the Marxist perspective. This theory argues that school isn't preparing you for opportunity, it's just preparing you to be an obedient worker in a capitalist system. And the key idea here is something they call the correspondence principle.
I mean, just think about it for a second. The whole structure of school perfectly mirrors the workplace. You've got a clear hierarchy, you have very little control over what you do every day, and you're motivated by external rewards, grades instead of a paycheck. School, in short, is just basic training for your future life as a worker. Now, according to Marxists, all of this serves one crucial function, something called cultural reproduction. It's basically the process by which children from wealthier, more powerful families are able to hold on to their advantages, making sure that privilege gets passed down from one generation to the next. So, from this point of view, the whole idea of a meritocracy, that the best and brightest will naturally rise to the top, is a total myth. It's a powerful story that makes a deeply unfair system seem fair, justifying inequality while actually making sure it stays in place.
So there you have it. We've got our 2 challengers in the ring. The functionalist view of school as a fair sorting machine versus the Marxist view of school as a tool to keep the rich rich and the poor poor.
Now, the functionalist view faces some pretty tough questions. For starters, how can the system really be a fair sorting mechanism when we all know that not everyone starts from the same line? Wealthy families can buy their kids a huge advantage with private schools and private tutors, completely sidestepping the whole merit-based process.
And another really powerful critique asks, who even decides which jobs are important? Who says a doctor is more functionally important to society than a garbage collector? The argument becomes circular, right? The job's important because it pays well, and it pays well because it's important. Critics say this is just a fancy way to justify massive inequality.
Okay, but the Marxist theory isn't perfect either. One of the biggest criticisms is that it kind of treats students like passive puppets, just assuming they soak up everything the system throws at them without ever fighting back.
And we know that's just not true. Reality is way messier. Tons of research shows that students, far from being passive, often resist. They break rules, they challenge their teachers, and they create their own anti-school cultures that directly fly in the face of the system's authority.
That being said, the Marxist critique of things like vocational training can be incredibly sharp. When these programs are badly designed, some researchers have gone so far as to call them modern slave labor, basically schemes that offer exploitation with very little real training, all designed to control unemployed youth rather than actually help them.
So after all that, where does this leave us? After hearing both sides of this pretty epic debate, what's the big takeaway? Well, we're left with two powerful but totally conflicting explanations for what school is really all about. On one hand, you have school as this positive force for social good, creating harmony and putting people where they can best contribute. And on the other, you have school as this dark instrument of domination, designed to maintain an unfair status quo.
In the end, there's no simple, easy answer. And that leaves us with a final question for you. Think back on your own time in school. The classes, the exams, the friendships, the cliques. Did it feel more like a fair sorting machine, rewarding talent and hard work? Or did it feel more like a reproduction system, one that simply reinforced the advantages people walked in with on day one?